The Adventure of the Sussex Vampire. Holmes had read carefully a note which the last post had brought him. Then with a dry chuckle, which was his nearest approach to a laugh, he tossed it over to me. For a mixture of the modern and of the medieval, of the practical and of the widely fanciful, I think this is surely the limit, said he. What do you make of it, Watson? I read as follows. 46 Old Drury, November the 19th. We Vampires. Sir, our client Mr. Robert Ferguson of Ferguson and Muirhead, tea brokers of Menton Lane, has made some inquiry from us in a communication of even date concerning vampires. As our firm specializes entirely upon the assessment of machinery, the matter hardly comes within our purview, and we have therefore recommended Mr. Ferguson to call upon you and lay the matter before you. We have not forgotten your successful action in the case of Matilda Briggs. We are, sir, faithfully yours, Marrison and Dodd. Matilda Briggs was not the name of a young woman, Watson, said Holmes in a reminiscent voice. It was a ship which is associated with the giant rat of Sumatra, a story for which the world is not yet prepared. But what do we know about vampires? Does it come within our purview either? Anything is better than stagnation, but really we seem to have been switched on to a Grimm's fairy tale. Make a long arm, Watson, and see what V has to say. I leaned back and took down the great index volume to which he referred. Holmes balanced it on his knee, and his eyes moved slowly and lovingly over the record of old cases mixed with the accumulated information of a lifetime. Voyage of the Glorious Scott, he read. That was bad business. I have some recollection you made a record of it, Watson, though I was unable to congratulate you upon the result. Victor Link, the forger, venomous lizard or Gila, remarkable case that. Vittoria, the circus bill, Vanderbilt and the Eggman, Vipers, Figure, Hammersmith, Wonder, hello, good old index. You can't beat it. Listen to this, Watson. Vampirism in Hungary, and again vampires in Transylvania. He turned over the pages with eagerness, but after a short intent perusal he threw down the great book with a snarl of disappointment. Rubbish, Watson, rubbish. What have we to do with walking corpses who can only be held in their graves by stakes driven through their hearts? It's pure lunacy. But surely, said I, the vampire was not necessarily a dead man. A living person might have the habit. I have read, for example, of the old sucking the blood of the young in order to retain their youth. You're right, Watson. It mentions the legend in one of these references. But are we to give serious attention to such things? This agency stands flat-footed upon the ground, and there it must remain. The world is big enough for us. No ghosts need apply. I fear we cannot take Mr. Robert Ferguson very seriously. Possibly, this note, maybe from him, might throw some light upon what is worrying him. He took up a second letter which had lain unnoticed upon the table, while I had been absorbed with the first. This he began to read with a smile of amusement upon his face, which gradually faded away into an expression of intense interest and concentration. When he had finished, he sat for some little time lost in thought with the letter dangling from his fingers. Finally, with a start, he aroused himself from his reverie. Cheeseman Lamberley. Where is Lamberley, Watson? It is in Sussex, south of Horsham. Not very far, eh? And Cheeseman's? I know that country, Holmes. It is full of old houses which are named after the man who built them centuries ago. You get Aldies and Harveys and Carringtons. The folks are forgotten, but the names live in their houses. Precisely, said Holmes coldly. It was one of the peculiarities of his proud, self-contained nature that though he docketed any fresh information very quietly and accurately in his brain, he seldom made any acknowledgment to the giver. I rather fancy we shall know a good deal more about Cheeseman's Lamberley before we are through. The letter is, as I had hoped, from Robert Ferguson. By the way, he claims acquaintance with you. With me? You had better read it. He handed the letter across. It was headed with the address quoted. Dear Mr. Holmes, it said, I have been recommended to you by my lawyers, but indeed the matter is so extraordinarily delicate it is most difficult to discuss. It concerns a friend for whom I am acting. This gentleman married some 5 years ago a Peruvian lady, the daughter of a Peruvian merchant, whom he had met in connection with the importation of nitrates. The lady was very beautiful, but the fact of her foreign birth and of her alien religion always caused a separation of interest and of feelings between husband and wife. So after a time his love may have cooled towards her, and he may have come to regard the union as a mistake. He felt there were sides of her character which he could never explore or understand. This was the more painful, as she was as loving a wife as a man could have, to all appearance absolutely devoted. Now for the point which I will make more plain when we meet. Indeed, this note is merely to give you a general idea of the situation and to ascertain whether you would care to interest yourself in the matter. The lady began to show some curious trait quite alien to her ordinarily sweet and gentle disposition. The gentleman had been married twice, and he had one son by the first wife. This boy was now 15, a very charming and affectionate youth, though unhappily injured through an accident in childhood. Twice the wife was caught in the act of assaulting this poor lad in the most unprovoked way.